before we start this audio, I just wanted to point out that unfortunately we had to re-record our thoughts on Terminator Salvation because when I originally had this recorded, unfortunately the sound wasn't turned on, so I had to re-record it with Eddie just recently over the phone. So I apologize. We apologize if the sound doesn't come out quite as well when we're talking about Terminator Salvation. But we'll make sure going in the future that we'll try not to have a situation like that happening again. But anyway, here's our thoughts on the rest of the Terminator films. Welcome to Film Freaks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And here we have with part 2 of our retrospective of the Terminator franchise. And now we're continuing with the third film of Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. Now, a little backstory. Believe it or not, when I first... there was actually a long hiatus after the success of Terminator 2. Because Terminator 2...
they really ended it.
Well, yeah, because Terminator 2 Judgment Day is even this day is considered one of the best movies of all time.
Yeah.
One of the best action films of all time. Everything. Yes. I didn't think that after the second one ended, that they would ever do a sequel.
They didn't need it, man. I think this was because they went on a long hiatus and how loved that franchise is. This was about cash.
Yeah.
That.
Basically, this was a long. This was about, I want to say, 12 years. About another. Yeah,
it's 12.
It's about 12 years. 2003, 1991. Yeah, it's about 12 years.
Yeah.
So we get it to where, basically, I even know that, but to be honest, I didn't know this movie existed, was even coming out until in 2002. No, I'm sorry, it was around the early 2003. I was getting the habit of watching trailers online because I was getting more used to the internet. So when I was using this website called apple.com/trailers, I was actually getting the habit of seeing movie trailers come out before they were even released. And
this is actually around the time when they pretty much ruined trailers forever, and you can look them up online.
Yeah, well, this was the early area where people were going to see previews online instead of having to go to the theater and watch them. So I get this, believe it or not, there was actually a really cool teaser trailer I remember watching. So this teaser trailer I remember was, I was on this website of apple.com, and this teaser trailer showed this liquid... I thought they were pretty much using the T-1000's kind of liquid metal, because it's like this liquid metal, like basically forming the Terminator logo. It's forming into like these different pieces and everything, and then all of a sudden it turns into T3. Like, it's like, holy shit, another Terminator movie?
Yeah. Well, I seen the teaser, but people also, if you remember in 2003, I don't know if you do, this movie was heavily marketed everywhere.
Yeah.
This was like what King Kong did in 2005 and what Godzilla did in 98.
Yeah.
This is what this did in 2003.
Yeah, 2003 was actually, not just that, but 2003 was also the big year, because I remember, well, I didn't know until years later, but this was there was a slogan that they wanted to use called, on the tagline, I think they said something like, "The war begins in 2003" or something, which actually, if you look at it, and I know this is kind of off topic, but this kind of relates to the Iraq War happening. So this was actually coming around the time when the Iraq War, the second Persian Gulf War was happening.
Yeah.
So the marketing for this was huge. And then when I finally got to watch the official trailer, it showed basically... I thought the trailer was going to the trailer showed us a glimpse of how I thought this film was going to be taking place in the future, because in the trailer it showed that it was going to be like all these Terminators and stuff, like these miniguns and all that, and it showed like pretty much it showed the Terminator in modern times, protecting John Connor and all that, but it didn't really tell us exactly what it was about. So
it did market itself, but it also was really clever not letting us know what was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea that it was kind of like basically from the trailers. You basically get the idea that there's this girl Terminator that's looking for John Connor, and it's kind of doing a similar plot like 2 did.
Yeah.
So
though I will like to say, a lot of people at the time was like, "Oh God, people were like, oh, women being villain, king guns." A lot of people were like, no, you'll never be Robert Patrick, and I agree with that. So never be Robert Patrick. Boy, was that girl fucking sexy.
Christina
Walken.
Oh my
God, damn, she was beautiful. That girl, when I remember seeing this movie with her sexy ass walking down, woo!
Yeah.
Oh my God, she was fucking hot. So I gave it a pass somewhat because, goddamn, dude, talk about stiffy alert, man.
Yeah.
Man, she was hot.
I'll admit, even to this day, like, this woman, she is fucking sexy when I saw her in that movie. So, basically, this film is pretty much the Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines begins with, actually starts in the future, because much like the other films, we start in the future where John Connor is leading the resistance and everything of the human race, and we basically get to see where John Connor is pretty much living a lonely lifestyle and everything.
Because you do get to see him. It starts out where he's actually riding his bike, motorcycle.
Right.
Now he's moved up to a claw truck.
So this is still taking place after 2. After 2 ended. So you get the idea that Edward Furlong's grew up to become Nick Stahl, or as we call him, Nick Wall.
Yeah, Nick. All right, but we'll get to the
but we'll get to that later.
But anyways, it starts out where, and this is where when I went. I seen this in opening night. And basically, what like when I get into this, it's kind of like opening the same as 2 did, where he get the narrating, but then he reveals my mother died of cancer. I'm like, oh fuck! They didn't even bring Sarah Connor back in this motherfucker.
Well, no, if I remember correctly, I don't think they even mentioned her death until later in the film.
They do. They know that he narrated it at the beginning.
I
he
thought
did. No, he mentioned that his mom died of cancer.
Okay, I thought that was later.
No, they explained the gap, how like and everything was so good and all this stuff. Okay, if everything's so good, then and nothing's mishapped, then why bring this franchise back? And then he reveals like, oh, my mom died of cancer. But something in my gut is like, I feel like something's about to happen again.
Yeah.
Because, oh no, they did a clever thing because it was 97. That's what they did. They actually, this movie was in 2003, but I think what they did was they went backwards in time and say that they were in the year 1997, which the year that 2 was supposedly going to happen.
I think 2 took place in 94, because if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong for those, because it's been a while since I watched Terminator 2.
No,
I remember it was 94.
No, okay, all right, it could be 94. I can't remember the timelines, but because they defeated the timeline in 2, now he's in the time that what would have been the very same day that the war would have started. He starts feeling like it's still going to happen for some reason.
Yeah.
And then he explains, no, I'm alone, I'm doing construction. And it shows him doing construction. He's working a construction job and all that stuff. And he's basically saying that because he's afraid to make his name out there, he kind of lives a quiet lifestyle. Where he don't have a home, he don't have a bank account.
He's basically homeless.
Yeah, he does on purpose because he says if he doesn't, then the Terminators will come back and kill him again.
Yeah, and so that, and also we pretty much get the story where, much like the other 2 films, we get someone else. We get the Terminator coming back in time, because at first, actually, I believe it goes like this. It goes back to the first movie again, where the evil Terminator is now a woman who gets sent back in time, and she's called the TX.
Yeah,
the TX, who's portrayed by Christina Loken. Yeah. So the TX is coming around, and she's basically what she's looking for is she's basically doing like Arnold did in the first film, where she's going around killing people that are linked to Skynet. So everyone who is related to the families of Skynet or whatever. Yeah. She's killing them off one by one. So, I, at least in some regard, I appreciate the film trying not to copy too much with 2, as they were with basically doing more like connecting things with the first film, because they're trying to basically have a similar formula, but it's kind of shorthanded, because as the film goes on, it does start to feel very the same.
Yeah.
So basically, we get into where
Nick gets hurt. I don't know if she hurt him or he was riding and he started having flashbacks, which caused him to have a motorcycle wreck.
Yeah.
And then upon that, he knows that he can't go to hospitals because then they'll find him. He goes to a veterinary's office, he breaks into, and he is caught by the owner of that, which is owned by Brewster.
Catherine Brewster.
Which is
played by Claire Danes.
Yes. Yeah. But her, when he realizes that's Brewster, he remembers, you don't find out later on, but that is actually destined to be his wife.
Yeah.
In the movie. And destiny is forcing him to do this, whether he don't realize it or not. It made him to where he can now officially meet this girl so they can get in love and they still go, they can still do what they got to do.
Yeah. So in a way, actually, this feels less like a rip off of 2, a similar plot to 2. It feels really more to 1, because much like in the first film, when Kyle Reese was it had a similar way with that Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor had that kind of like similar plot.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you too on that because you got two humanoid people. Then this one they just add the good Terminator, but they also, instead of making where Robert Patrick was going around, he's actually just wanting to kill one person only, John Connor. This one, she's just slaughtering everybody like the first one. So they're trying to bring the horror feature back to it, but it doesn't work because it feels like a fucking action movie.
Yeah, and basically Arnold comes back this time again, and I will say this was a funny scene where he comes back in time and he goes to that cowboy club or whatever, where it's like it's a strip club, a male strip club, and he goes in there and he's asking for the dude's clothes and everything. He's like, "Hey bitch, wait your turn," and he's like, "Talk to the hand," and then he starts talking to him. He's like, "Give it to me now," or whatever, and he's like, "Now," or something like that. And then all of a sudden after that he gets his clothes, and then this did crack me up, where he goes outside, he puts the sunglasses on, you think it's going to be the classic shades that he wears, but it's actually those weird star ones.
Yeah, it's pink too.
Yeah.
I did think that they brought the funny to it a little bit on this one, because the other ones even though you did laugh at some of the parts and two, this one really started to bring the comedy a little bit more.
Yeah. And so, and then he does find eventually the actual shades in the truck. Yeah. So his plan is to find.
Yeah, he's not stealing a bike. He's stealing an old fucking
it's like a SUV or whatever.
My problem is this next scene that comes through. My next problem is the next scene. The girl who plays the fucking bad lady, the bad Terminator, and Arnold seem to find where Nick Stalls is at.
Really very conveniently.
Just conveniently, when they've pretty much kind of feels like they've probably popped out in other parts of the state. And they got there really quick, which I question that. That was a little, I don't know, it's a bother. It's like, oh, you knew he was fucking there that easy?
Yeah.
Then why would she want to go kill everybody from Skynet when she knew where John Connor is?
Yeah, and then
I mean, how are you going to know he's at a goddamn fucking animal shelter?
Exactly.
Yeah. So then you get the battle between the girl and, Arnold, and you kind of similar to fucking Liquid, man.
I mean,
but this one, she is pretty cool, though. I noticed when I watched it recently that the CGI is already outdated on some of these fights, because that part where she actually, which was cool when it came out, where she was instead of Liquid, she could twist around.
Right, twist around with her metal.
Yeah, and then just like be around him like a fucking snake, which is pretty cool. And it's cool, but I noticed some of it doesn't hold up today.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah, but I do like at least how we get first introduced to John Connor again, and when he first meets the Terminator, he has a similar shock to how the second film did with Sarah, where he thinks that now, since the Skynet's pretty much after him, he thinks that he's in fear of the Terminator trying to kill him. Yeah. So I do at least appreciate that, because in a situation like that, I would be freaking out too. But then we get to see that they go with Catherine Brewster, who's locked up in that truck that Arnold was driving because he put her in there. And so their plan is to get away to survive from the TX like the second film did. And this time we find out that Catherine Brewster has a father who is working for Skynet, basically.
Yeah, because basically Skynet rebuilt itself. Yeah. And now they built this up in kind of like a Pentagon thing where the government now runs
it's working for government projects. Yeah. I think it's called Cyberdyne system, or Cyberdyne, or it's either Cyberdyne or something. I don't know if it's actually called Skynet in this one or whatever, but it's something to do with Skynet, because these are the early models that the government is using now. Yeah. So their plan is to pretty much track down their father, who's pretty much running things like that. Yeah. And as the film goes along, you basically start to piece together scene for scene parts that are from the second film.
Because in all fairness, Brewster's father is like the equivalent to Miles Davis, that Miles dude. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so everybody feels like the need. So they do. All right, I don't want to go into. We don't have to go strongly details in this movie. So basically, they go on their journey. I can't really remember too much of the journey.
Well, I wanted to say that the reason why all this happened too is because, as the Terminator explains, that when the second film ended, that was pretty much, it was postponed. It wasn't fully the end of it. So they basically, Skynet in the future had a failsafe where they could actually find an alternative to retcon things to try to build a different future.
Yeah. So basically, you get more battles. You do get a cool scene where you kind of feel like the nuke's already started, because that fucking part where she actually sets that big bomb off and explodes like partial of that big old block in LA.
Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty cool. And we do get that, well, at the beginning of the film, we do get that cool chase sequence that goes when, well, not to really backtrack, but we get that cool chase sequence at the beginning where Arnold is like on that truck, and he's, you know, when he first steals that truck and then he's going to look for John Connor. Yeah. I thought that sequence where he's running through buildings and stuff was pretty cool. The way it was, you know, shot.
Yeah. So you get kind of like you hint and you kind of get the hints of the same feel. Didn't in 3 they try to go back to that Mexican hideout and all that again, thinking he
I don't
might
think
can
so.
ask him. I can't remember.
It wasn't in this movie.
Okay, well, anyways, you kind of get kind of similar too, where they kind of have to go hide out for a while. The bitch ends up finding them again. They fight their way out. They're hiding out some more, and then basically they realize they're gonna make their way to the Skynet thing, and then Brewster starts opening up more. John Connor tells his history, and it's kind of like you kind of get the Lyndall Hamilton and Michael Biehn feel to it, where he's like, you know, trying to explain to her what, and then he knows about the future, so it's like, Arnold tells the future, he goes, she's your wife.
Yeah, and then
and this one we forgot to mention, he's not just protecting John, he's protecting her too.
Yeah, because she was the one who sent him back. So I do like that, and how it's kind of changed in the second film in that he's not just there to protect John. Yeah. He's actually there to protect her.
So I sorry for forgetting that part. That was a big plot. I'm glad I remembered it right now. But yeah, she's the one who did behind John's back, because John didn't know. Because
in the future they revealed that the Terminator actually killed John.
Yeah, and they got to fix it because John is officially dead. That's what they're trying to save John back against. They don't, you know. So I mean, that is a cool concept, even though I think they should have just said 2 was over with. But on paper, this one looked good. Like, you could bring it back. I mean, at the time, we were like, hey, it's cool. We could see more Terminator, you know? So we didn't really care, you know, we were cool to see it back.
Well, and not just that, but we get to that, well, in between, before we get to the final climax, we also get that scene which I'll admit, this probably has the best action scene, where they come across the cemetery, where we get to basically see
that's where Sarah Connor
that's where Sarah Connor pretty much left her weapons there, because her ashes were scattered in Mexico.
Yeah, in Mexico, where they hid where, you know, in 2, where she had like close ties to these Mexican families that she loved. They spread her ashes out there. I forgot about that, but the government didn't realize that they used all her weapons as her body. Yeah. So Arnold knew about that. So when he went to that cemetery, we also get the meeting of a classic character from
Dr. Silverman.
Dr. Silverman again, though he is only glimpsed, as in a tease. Like, hey, you know, congratulations, you brought original person back.
Because throughout the film, the cops are also, like the first film, they're trying to look for Catherine Brewster, who went missing. And Dr. Silverman comes in for like this weird 1-minute scene where he's talking about, I've been through a situation like that before that you're in, where I'm in a state of shock. All of a sudden, it was kind of funny where this is a cool part where Arnold starts getting the guns, and since they're overrun by the cops, he starts shooting his way out like the second film did, and then all of a sudden Dr. Silverman's like, oh shit, he gives him that look, and then he just runs and walks away. Yeah.
Which, by the way, unfortunately, as much as he's an icon guy, we would never see him again after this movie. That was his final closure.
I know, which kind of wasted him there. I was like, man, what the fuck was the point of bringing him back like that? Yeah. So anyway,
at least he could have maybe got killed in Crossfire.
Yeah.
Because he didn't come back in the other ones. But anyways, so he kills him off, and then he's dead. And then
we get to basically a chase scene involving the TX trying to crime on them after they steal the hearse. Mm-hmm. And after that, it pretty much becomes
it becomes standard.
Very standard, and
until we get to
the climax involving when they get to the final Skynet, where they're trying to confront her father, and he gets shot by the TX because at first the TX poses as Catherine Brewster, and she shoots him, and then we get that it's cool, but at the same time, I can see where you're coming from. That some of the CGI in this scene is kind of really not so good.
Yeah.
The part where the TX is fighting Arnold.
Yeah.
In the bathroom.
So and the CGI and the fight in the bathroom. So we're like, all right, they're at this place. Pretty much, it looks like Area 51 meets the Pentagon.
Kind of. Yeah.
Like this place where it's got a lot of bunkers and all this shit. So, yeah, like you said, she did what she did to the main dude. She took something that he had the keys to, and then you finally, because the movie is called Rise of the Machines, which questioned me the whole movie. I was like, when are they going to fucking rise finally?
Yeah, because the trailer makes you think that it's going to take place
they start out the
already.
They're already rising now. But this one, the rise actually happens towards the end because she steals a key from Brewster's father and starts letting them all alive.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden
this is where I did kind of get into it a little bit.
Yeah, I do like how we get different designs of the early models of Skynet.
You get the pterodactyl one. You get this one that looks like a goddamn.
Looks like the one off of RoboCop.
RoboCop.
The Ed 209 from RoboCop.
You do get some of the big ones from Salvation, but you also get like other ones, like little B-size ones. Yeah. You get all these creative ones, which you know what? For what it is, I actually enjoyed the scene.
And there is one cool part I do kind of like. It's the part where Captain Brewster is saving John in this one part, and that's really the only time we see her really do anything that like progresses her character. Because throughout the film, they don't really do shit with her character.
Yeah, you don't know why she's important other than popping John Connor's babies.
Yeah, but the fact that she has her father who's the lead of everything.
Yeah, it's just like.
But other than that, we finally get to the climax because they're pretty much led to this. Well, we get led to the part where they go to this area that's like kind of like Area 51.
Well, no, here's the thing though.
Like
it was pretty cool. It was actually pretty cool because they didn't realize this. So they're fighting their way, and you got this now. The rise is actually happening. Now you're getting into it because the rise is actually happening. You're seeing all of these things going on. Now it feels like if the zombie apocalypse or any kind of apocalypse starts and you actually see still human life, but you see everybody getting wasted now. And I actually thought that was cool. It's finally seeing that. Then Arnold says, like, I don't know if it's her or Arnold. They pretty much were told to go to this little bunker thing, but they didn't know it was a bunker.
Yeah.
And he didn't. Arnold centered them, and then Arnold. Like every fucking movie, he knows he's gonna end up dying. It was the end of the road. The girl, though, I will say that at least this T thing, the TX is like pretty much whooping Arnold so bad that he knows he can't handle it as easy. So he just said, just go to this bunker, and he sends them on their way, and they don't realize what they're going to. They thought it was gonna be some little area where you think they can shut it down and it's over with.
Yeah.
Well, as they're going, Arnold does his final battle, and then
sacrifices himself.
This one, instead of he sacrifices himself and takes the TX with him. This big old thing.
This door is like this shutter door is like closing down, and these blast doors are like coming down on him, and it shows that the TX is in her true form.
Who was it that he was saying when they were shooting? They were shooting at Arnold, or somebody was. He goes, "I am a machine."
That was John Connor. That was
we forgot that part where she brainwashed him.
She brainwashes him into the machine inside, and she
brain.
Basically makes him try to kill John Connor.
Yeah. I did forget about that. That was a big thing.
And that actually I thought was cool because that was something different that they never did before. So I do like that aspect.
But he fights his inner self, or something happens.
He starts banging on the car after he basically tries to control himself and let John Connor go.
So you get like this human form where even though it's controlling, like, it took over for a little bit, it does make him think about how much he loves John Connor and them. So he goes, "I am a machine." Then that's where he does the battle, and then they go to their little area thinking it was going to be an area where they can stop this. Well, after the battle, like we just said, that it goes down and crushes him and kills Arnold and the TX. Finally, they're done. But the war's still, because she already brought every one of them to life. That it doesn't matter. She did her job.
Basically, what happens is when they get deep inside this bunker or wherever this place, this closed area, this secret area, they get there and they realize that this place that they're at, this bunker, is not even a place to prevent the machines from coming to life. Yeah. What happens is this place that they actually built is to protect them from the war.
All right, I'm gonna tell you right now, for what the movie was and a lot of problems with flaws and so much similarity, I really got into this. Like he said, they were tricked. And the whole entire time was John Connor's like, "Oh my God, it was never to prevent this. It was just to start it and save me, so I can lead them." I can never stop this.
Because they have all these bombs here that are they have like all these different bombs here inside this place, but it's to protect them to basically inside instead of outside, because they actually start seeing the ending shows basically.
I like the ending because like shit starts going down.
The nuclear weapons start going off,
and then like John Connor receives this thing from the sky, and he goes, "Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. Who is this?" And John Connor reveals, "All right, I gotta take action now. I'm John Connor."
Yeah, and that finally leads into the future
and
that we all know.
While that's going on, they got this like sad score playing, and the world is officially blowing up. And then you have him narrating it like, "We couldn't have stopped this. It finally comes to an end."
Yeah.
And then I will tell you right now, for what the flaw was, that was an epic fucking ending.
That was a good
ending. To this day, I still love that ending.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and it really brought hairs to my head because people walked out like, "Oh my God, we didn't get a happy ending in that motherfucker."
Yeah, it led to leave what we thought the trailer was going to
It was like, damn, could you imagine if they closed the whole franchise on a sad note?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my fucking God, what you do, because it would be like, what, 8-9 years before we got the fourth one. So it's like, you thought officially that ended it all. It was like, oh my God. It's over with. But I will say that ending with that sad music and watching everybody die and the world just sort of got nuked. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking God.
It ended on a very satisfactory note.
And you got John Connor just falling to his knees crying. But then that's whenever the guy's like, oh my God, what do we do? Who's the leader there? Who runs that whole Skynet area? Who's gonna take us? And John Connor answers the phone. He's like, answers back, says, "I'm John Connor."
Right.
As in revealing, I'm running it now.
Yeah.
I'm leading us to victory. And that's where it leads into the war finally. Actually, you know what? If they didn't have to carbon copy and could have done a little bit more of its own thing, this movie had its potential to be a damn good fucking closure, like a trilogy.
Exactly. But overall, though, I will say that this film is not bad. It is good, far from the first two films, keep in mind. Yeah. It's nowhere near as
good as those.
Great as those. But I will say that as an entertainment value, it's good. I mean, for my pros, I do love Arnold coming back, and I do like the ideas they mix with these different types of Terminators, and even some things they throw in there with Arnold basically taking a different control himself for the end.
All right. I did like he said, like me and him's even on this on the light parts. I like the performances. No, I'm not gonna say the performances yet. I liked Arnold Schwarzenegger in this. It was cool seeing him back. It was something that everybody wished. It was cool to see it come back, even though it didn't need to. I did. The girl villain was just eye candy. I mean, the villain was badass, but I thought it was just a knockoff of the fucking Luke women. Though she was sexy.
She had different. Well, as far as her features, she has cool features, but I thought they were kind of underused because we didn't like. We
kept seeing the same shit that the Liquid Man could have used.
I mean, she does kind of mix up in some parts, but they don't use it like enough because they're just kind of snippets.
So I did like that. I did like the I thought it was cool that they went back to some of the older characters, like the Doctor.
Yeah.
They could have used him more. They underused him, but it was cool seeing familiar faces.
Yeah.
They did do a scene where where John Connor's actually carrying the pictures of Sarah Connor, and it's Linda Hamilton.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I did like.
I like a couple of the chase sequences.
Some of it,
like the beginning was cool, and then the
ending was. I think it's probably one of its strongest suits.
Yeah.
Because that was a very emotional ending for what that movie only gave us. It was really emotional, and to be honest with you, I think that ending is. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, it is nowhere near 1 at all. 1 blows 3 to the water, but emotionally, you're emotionally more. You cry more in 3 than 1.
Yeah,
like emotional level. But don't get me wrong, no, 3 it can never touch 1. Dude, it hangs on its nut hair sack.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 is so much better. I'm just saying that you do get more emotional. You get the same emotions like you did with the ending with 2, but it did its own thing, which was cool. Right. So I give 3 that. I did like all the cool other Terminators. That was cool.
Yeah.
But this movie, for what it was worth, it's decent, but it comes with a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but Nick Stalls was a bad choice for fucking John Connor, and I didn't really care for the girl playing that
Claire Danes
as his wife, man. I really thought they were
Very.
It's just because Nick Stahl's. I swear he has no like his emotion. He don't have emotion in his face. He just he reminded me of Kristen Stewart of a man version. He was just like.
He's like holding the side.
And his facial features don't change. I'm like, dude. I think, in my personal opinion, I think Nick Stahl's was the worst John Connor out of the whole franchise.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't care for the girl, for what it's worth. I know that it's cool to see that it's going to be two people that need to protect it, the wife, and it was cool that they did say that she did come back and did it.
Because she was the one that sent Arnold back.
But I just didn't care for Claire Danes.
Yeah, I mean, they really didn't give her really much depth with her or with John Connor this time. So with that, it was very lackluster. And plus, I also had a problem with a lot of the things that they just pretty much rehashed. Because really, if you look at it, this is both a combination of 1 and 2.
It is, and that's my biggest flaw with this, is it's all rehashed.
Now, keep in mind, a formula can still be done with time travel, but I did feel like because the movie was kind of building up to the future war that we're led to believe in the first 2 films, that's where I felt like the film was losing me, because you didn't need to see him time travel again.
Yeah.
You know, there was no reason to go back in time.
Yeah, this could have been the salvation right here. Though I still will. That ending was.
It was good. Yeah, I'm glad it was a good start, but I still feel like
they were better off.
They were just starting things to like recycling everything else.
You got to think the rise, and when things finally look different, doesn't even happen until the last 10 minutes.
Yeah,
10, 15 minutes. The rest of it is actually doing the same formula again.
But with everything he said, I pretty much.
I thought it was a piss poor thing to just say Sarah Connor did all that just to die of cancer. I thought that was just like, okay, she wouldn't come back. So
well, but overall, as much as like I'm very mixed about this one, I'm probably gonna give this one probably a 5, probably a 5.5 out of 10.
I'm going 5.5 out of 10 with this one also.
Yeah, so overall, that's our thoughts on Terminator 3's Rise of Minions. Not good, not bad, just very kind of just.
I can watch it again. It's leveled out. The only thing that I didn't care for is the Brewster Connor. I didn't care for Stahl's or the girl.
Yeah,
I didn't really care for their performances in this one, but you can go back to it.
Yeah. After the success of Terminator 3, it appeared that after a while, I didn't really think they would make any more Terminator movies, you know, because after 3, it pretty much made it to where that seemed like it was going to be the end of like, I was expecting them to make another one after that, but it seemed like they just took a long hiatus.
Yeah.
Like
they started taking hiatuses after 3, 4, and then the 5th one, they started doing that big hiatus.
Yeah, and between the next one, between 3 and the next one we're going to talk about, believe it or not, there was actually a TV show that was actually short-lived on cable called Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicle, the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Which I have not ever watched. So
Yeah.
I remember it.
Yeah, I remember when it came on and it starred Lena Headey from Game of Thrones on it, who played Sarah Connor, but I never got a chance to watch it. But I heard it was actually a pretty good show. But I just never really.
It's funny because in the 5th one they get a Game of Thrones woman to play.
Yeah. So, I never got a chance to see the Sarah Connor Chronicles, so we can't really discuss that one. But I just figured I'd bring it up for those who have seen it. Let us know what y'all thought about it. But the next one we get to, which is Terminator Salvation. This was actually a film I was very anticipated for, based on what I've been hearing, because it seemed like, before the trailers even coming out, that this film was pretty much going to be taking like the very end of the 3rd film and actually doing what we've been trying to see in the past like 3 movies, which is setting it in the future war.
Yeah, I remember I didn't even see much of the trailers of this until I remember seeing the posters. I didn't even know it was coming out. So I walked in the theaters. I remember they had this cool poster, and it showed like the Terminator's skull face. Build out a skyscraper.
Yeah.
Terminator was just breathing fire.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and not just that, but it was also got me curious, because now this film was directed by, a director that's been hit and miss, McGee, who previously directed I think he did the first 2 Charlie's Angels films. And he also directed We Are Marshall.
Yeah. Which, by the way, this movie again replaces John Connor.
Yeah, they have a tendency of not keeping the same actor.
It was actually a one-up because, man, I did not really care for Nick Stahl at all.
Yeah, I know. You're you discussing that. But yeah, I was looking for this movie too, also because the cast. I saw that Christian Bale was cast as John Connor, and it got me really like seeing what they were going to do with this story now that it's in the future. And before the movie came out, after the movie came out, I actually went and got this novel that was set before the events of Terminator Salvation, called Code War, which pretty much put like two different perspectives that both take place before the events of the film, which basically show like the rise of the machines and things like that, things that went down when the United States was starting to get into the global strike down that happened.
And I believe in this, when the movie takes place, it's like 8 years after the event of 3.
No, this is actually 15 years. Believe it or not, it's actually 2018 that Salvation takes place in. So with this one, this film now takes place, well, before the film opens basically with a character we're introduced called Marcus, who is played by Sam Worthington, which is pretty much his first big break in Hollywood. And
he's kind of playing like the more humanoid but machine version of Arnold.
Yeah.
Role, where he's kind of playing the good guy.
Yeah, basically he starts out as a prisoner that's when Judgment Day happens in 2003, and he's on death row. He's getting sentenced for lethal injection. So when he dies, first he's talking to Helena Bonham Carter's character, who's kind of reminds me of the doctor from the previous film. So I guess since they couldn't get that guy back, they got her to fill in kind of like that role, even though she has a different name, basically. But anyway, the film pretty much starts with he ends up being killed by lethal injection, and then it cuts to 15 years later in 2018, where we are now in the future war that the previous films have led up to. And basically the story revolves around John Connor, who's played by Christian Bale this time, who gets him and his team are sent in, who works, he's running the resistance. So he hasn't quite had the resistance built yet, but he has a small alliance that goes with him to get pretty much to pretty much look for information about Skynet and everything. And also, when we're introduced into this world of Skynet, we see that the humans are pretty much captured and imprisoned, basically, by the machines.
They're being slave made too.
Yeah. So
all killed off for slave kind of slave thing. But this movie was really interesting because really this is not much of a John Connor film. We get a really side story of Sam Worthington as well. Then we get Anton Yelchin playing the younger
Kyle Reese.
Kyle Reese, and his story, he's with some like little dark chick, I guess a black chick, little girl,
yeah,
a child, and they're all like kind of like I guess this is kind of set up in. And what's really cool is this is actually set up in the Mad Max type setting where everybody's like all dressed up like war warriors and stuff. I guess they're kind of like perfect, and the young and Anton are playing the characters that are kind of like trash people or like digging out, for trying to get to place, kind of like savages, like, they ain't got nowhere to go.
Yeah, and that's where I really love the way that this world is set up, because we see we finally see the post-apocalyptic feel that we've led up to, where you see pretty much everything's already destroyed. So we, instead of seeing like the machines pretty much destroying everything at first, we see the aftermath on how everything's very very bleak and very like grimy and everything. And I really love the way that the cinematography captures that.
And if you think about it now, it kind of looks similar to like Fury Road.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's a lot more grayish than Fury Road was, because Fury Road had more of like a
more clear.
Yeah, it had more of a brighter look to it, because this one looks like it's more grayish.
It is. It's like an atmosphere of Mad Max.
Yeah. But anyway, as the story goes along, we see that Marcus, who from the beginning of the film is pretty much on the way, looking around, so to speak. Well, basically, to not really go into too much detail, he ends up meeting Kyle Reese along the way, and he starts to discover that throughout the film is that he's starting to discover that he is basically a machine, because this film pretty much splits into two different storylines. The first story, one point of view is with Marcus, where he's basically learning more about himself and discovering how he's pretty much more machine versus human aspect. And also we have John Connor trying to get more information and trying to get people to join the resistance, and trying to get more kind of basically kind of do the same thing Will Smith did in I Am Legend, where he's looking for people, where he's always on the intercoms.
Another thing I say is this movie is a little bit confusing, which we'll get to a pros and cons with, but the confusing part where Kyle Reese is a lot younger than John Connor.
Well, I do feel like, yeah, because they do give a lot more depth with Kyle Reese, because you actually see how Kyle Reese is surviving at a very young age, because this film establishes that even though the past Kyle Reese is dead, this is pretty much the future Kyle Reese that we'll later see in the future. So this is still him, like born after. It's hard to really explain, but it's pretty much a different Kyle Reese than what we saw before, because this is the Kyle Reese that's in the new timeline, so to speak, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I do like how he pretty much learns how to he sets up all these different traps and stuff, and he does what any normal person would when it comes to fighting off these machines. And I actually really enjoyed Anton Yelchin's performance as Kyle Reese. I thought he was.
I loved his performance. I had no issue with it. I just got lost a little bit with the younger. And that's he's the father. I guess you really got to rewatch it a couple times to get it. It was confusing a little bit to everybody, because he's like 19 years old or 20.
Well, that's the thing, is that since this film is pretty much in a new timeline, so to speak, this is the new Kyle Reese that was born, because the past Kyle Reese died, who went back into the past.
I guess you could say it like that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what.
It kind of throws everything off, but yeah, you got him, and then him and Sam Worthington meet up, and he basically, in the movie, Sam Worthington is looking to protect him.
Yeah, and then, and the long story short, pretty much all this stuff ties into them meeting up with John Connor, and John Connor is revealing to Marcus that he is actually a Terminator, and they pretty much are looking to, and Marcus is starting to discover who he really is, and while trying to survive all this war.
The epic part where nobody knew that Arnold was going to come in. That theater went crazy.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because basically, as it goes along, they discover that in the war, John Connor doesn't trust Marcus, because he thinks that he's going to be like every other Terminator that he's come across, and is trying to kill him. So him and his team try to pretty much get him killed, but Marcus escapes, and along the way, he pretty much goes into. There's a situation that happens where Kyle Reese gets captured by the Terminators for the slavery place that they're going to, and they have to find a way to get inside this slavery place where all these other humans are. And there we see that Marcus is starting to finally see how everything came full circle. While at the same time,
basically, long story short, they got to go into Skynet and blow it up again.
Yeah, and then John Connor also has to get more. He's also not only getting more answers about what's happening, but he's also pretty much, trying to take down Skynet once for all, because he believes that this location is the true place that Skynet is built at.
And upon getting ready to blow it up, Marcus actually sees Bonham Carter. What's her name again?
Yeah, Helena Bonham Carter.
Bonham Carter. They have her, which is ironic. She actually, when she died, she had a will that put her it kind of reminded me of the Resident Evil with
the Red Queen.
The Queen and the Undercourt.
Yeah, Umbrella Corporation.
Yeah, Umbrella Corporation.
Yeah.
And they have it set up to where she's computerized like that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I did like that.
And that whole thing with Arnold coming in when you heard the fucking music, that was crazy.
Yeah, I know, that was actually pretty cool, because when the movie came out, I already knew that Arnold wasn't going to be in it, since at the time when he was governor, I knew that he wasn't going to be in the film, but they did say that they were going to use his likeness for a Terminator, and when he finally came on screen, we see the younger version of him that comes on screen. I actually think to this day the effects for it still hold up. More so than that other one that we pretty much already talked about. That one in Terminator Genesis, no.
Yeah, I did think that they did better with Christian Bale being John Connor. I didn't care for Nick Stahl in 3. That one was a little upsetting as far as that was good on John Connor. I mean, yeah, I did like Bryce Dallas Howard as Brewster, but then again, at the con park, they barely used her, which she was pointless in the movie in a way. I did like how it was shot with the whole, Mad Maxy look to it.
Yeah.
Great film. That was a praise. I like Sam Worthington. I like that everybody's performance in this. Now, as far as my cons, I thought they could have. I mean, I like the ending. I did like the ending as a pro. But as far as my cons, it did somewhat kind of started feeling kind of standard, in a way. You're just it didn't do anything like uppy, like it was going to build to something massive. Like they went to Skynet, they were blowing it up. Well, we kind of know that's what they've been doing in every movie.
Right, and I get that. I mean, it does feel, I am at least appreciative with this one, at least for my pros, that they at least established that since this is still the early years of Skynet, they're still trying to get like their main bases first, to pretty much get, because they feel like if they can knock out some of their main bases, that they can get to the true source. So with this one, since it did kind of throw me off that they pretty much already blown up a lot of the the whole world is pretty much already blown up itself. We don't get to see much destruction. But with the way that they're still fighting the war and everything, it still kept me going, and I actually did want to see where else it was going throughout. And not just that, but I love the way that that we see the human versus machine aspect with Marcus.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, granted, I would have preferred if they would have done more Christian Bale, because that is one of my cons, was that they did feel like John Connor himself feels very underused in this compared to the other films.
Yeah.
Marcus is pretty much the main star in this movie.
Yeah, they do. This is the first one, other than the first one, that John Connor is really, because in the first one, obviously he's not in it, but he, as far as the ones with John Connor in the movie, this is the first time they actually pushed him way to the side.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it sucks because, not Edward Furlong, but Nick Stahls was really not that good of a John Connor, and I think that was kind of, he had the whole movie to himself, but Christian Bale gets pushed.
Yeah.
And like I said, that was one of my cons with the, a lot of the good cast, but a lot of them was pushed to the side. The standard, it just felt very standard to me. I'm a con.
Well, I also did enjoy the way that I like the cinematography looks great, and I also enjoyed the way that you get to see the different types of Terminators, like especially when you get the giant ones, they kind of look like Transformers, and then you also get the machine versus machine fight at the end when Marcus fights the Terminator, which is the original Terminator that Arnold played.
Yeah, I like that. That was really good too. That was my con. That was my pro too.
And not just that, but I could have preferred if they would have made this movie an R-rated. It probably would have given it an even more grittier feel. But I feel like because it is very ground.
I'd like to also say another one of my cons. Even though what they did with Miss Carter in this film, what they did was cool. But did you kind of feel like she didn't have much of a backstory?
Yeah, it just felt like. This is my biggest thing. If she would have played at least like someone who's related to Dr. Silberman or someone in the previous movie, I could probably get behind that more. But she just kind of came and went in the very beginning of the film, and we don't see her until like the very end. So I did kind of draw me out because we don't really get much like characterization with her.
But yet we're supposed to really like they hint towards the end where Marcus meets her again, when she's like kind of like the Umbrella Corporation thing. They kind of hint that she's kind of like the big honcho or something. Like, how do you do that without a backstory?
Yeah, it's just it did kind of throw me out because you don't really feel like you're invested with that much because we didn't really know much about her. Another thing I did also enjoy the parts with it was cool hearing the soundtrack again from Terminator 2, like the part when John is going on the motorbike and he's going down the road and he tripwires that one Terminator and gets his one of his parts or whatever, or I'm sorry, he traps him. I thought that was pretty cool because that was a throwback to the second film.
Yeah, I also like where Marcus hears Rooster from Alice in Chains.
Yeah,
and it reminds him of his brother who passed away.
Yeah, it was great hearing.
It has a good soundtrack.
Yeah, it did, and not just that, but I mean, granted, there could have been a lot more like big epic battles that took place, because other than the part with like the big part with the big Terminator that's shooting them down, and the part where, you know, the final battle at the end, and when John Connor trips over that one Terminator, we don't really get to see much like action with the Terminators that much. Like we do throughout, but they're kind of like, they're quick and done. You know, they don't really like do much with them.
Yeah.
So that was one of my cons, because I was going to see more of like these different types of Terminators that we would have saw like in the future war.
Yeah.
But other than that, though, I mean, there's more I could go into detail. But overall, though, I did get into the story because I did feel like, because this was at a good point with not doing the time travel shit, and they were doing a more like, they were actually starting the war early and everything, and actually getting things off the ground. I did feel like this could have been a great start to a trilogy if they would have continued afterwards. And with that,
exactly.
I do feel, even though I have some issues with it, I do like this one better than 3, but it's certainly not as good, not nowhere near as grand as in epic as the first two films. But with that being said, I am going to give this a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go give this film a 6 out of 10.
Fair enough. Well, after pretty much the success, after Terminator Salvation came out, it looked like the film would have probably been a big hit. But surprisingly, this film actually underperformed. It was below expectations what Warner Brothers was looking for. And so, because the film didn't really do too well, unfortunately, the sequels that were going to be coming out got scrapped.
Yeah, they actually had 2 sequels planned. This was actually going to be a trilogy, which was supposedly going to end at part 6, but because of the underperformance, they canceled the plans.
Well, not just that, but it also became an issue of the rights issues, because after this film, and basically it had to do with box office, but also the rights, because the Halcyon company that owned the rights to the film, they basically sold themselves later to Paramount, who got the rights. And then after pretty much they scrapped the sequels to Salvation, they wanted to basically go back and shoot themselves in the foot by doing Terminator Genesis. And
that's the thing that pissed me off, because they had a perfect trilogy. First off, Connor Moore, Christian Bale signed up for all of them.
Yeah, and the focus, from what I heard, the original focus of the later 2 sequels was going to be the relationship building between John and Kyle Reese, on how it's basically what it became like how we got with the Star Wars prequels, but you know, different, kind of similar in that kind of, not necessarily in the writing part, but just the overall themes basically.
And then unfortunately, because of all this stuff you just mentioned with the rights and all that, we ended up getting this epic fucking piece of dog shit, Terminator Genesis.
Yeah, when the next one, Terminator Genesis, came out in 2015, and basically we don't want to go over the same thing we already did, because for those of you who don't know, we did a review of this back in 2015.
Let me just state this in a review. It sounded good on paper, but it should have just not tried it. It should never have tried it. It sounded good on paper, but it wasn't.
Exactly. It was something that would have been interesting, because they were doing something to pretty much like do things with the time travel plot, because this one, they go back in time again, and they basically make it to where they're starting the first 2 films completely over from scrap, which that right there just makes me just want to just tear my head out, because this film basically shows the first 2 films didn't even fucking happen.
They're basically saying that the first 2 films was trash, even though they were the best movies, one of the top 50 best movies ever made, saying that they were trash, and then they were trying to make it look like 3 and 4 was something good. Yeah,
not just that. I mean, there was so many problems with that film that we did in the review that for those of you who want to see, but basically not to go into too much detail, but I want to say that in the review we basically went over how bad it was that the plot go.
Well, you'll post a link to the review, and other than that, I'm just gonna warn everybody, it was an epic fucking piece of dog shit, and it's a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, it was about a 2 out of 10 for me too. I think, I remember it was a 2 out of 10. And pretty much it basically killed the franchise. And for those of you who do want to check out the review, we'll post a link below, and we also have it available on YouTube if you want to watch it. pretty much that film basically killed the franchise to the point now where we are no longer going to see a sequel to that. We are going to now, I don't know what they're doing with the rights now, because basically from what I heard is the next one will not star Arnold. So we'll probably just get another reboot basically.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a reboot from now on, but as far as right now, the Terminator series is no longer being made. They're done with the movies. That director needs to be fucking slapped in the face to think that he can just want it.
Yeah.
That the cast was really fucking horrible. They made Arnold look like a goddamn comedian, and not too much of a comedian. But that was like the worst Kyle Reese I ever fucking seen. Jai Courtney, who by the chance was also started in another fucking epic piece of dog shit called Good Day.
Yeah. And not just that, but the story was all over the place by doing a lot of things that were screwing with the timeline of the other films. And also, it has some of the worst CGI that I saw in that franchise. And not just that, but the way that the film progressed with having to waste opportunity, with having all the fucking bickering back and forth between Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese really drug it down. So basically, not to go into too detail, because we do want y'all to go check out our review of it. That film was such a bad.
To let you know, it's about a 45-50 minute.
Yeah, and with that, it was one of the worst. It was in our top list of worst films of that year. So with that being said, though, they actually have said that James Cameron himself is actually buying the rights back. So maybe in the future, if he's done with these Avatar sequels, he could probably get to doing a Terminator movie again. So, but until then, that's all we really much have. For those of you, overall, I'd say I do recommend at least the first 4 films, but 5, much like Good Day, Die Hard, it just sticks out like a sore fucking thumb.
Oh man, it's worth you frisbee in the trash can.
Mm-hmm.
I can deal with 1 through 4. I have all of those. I just cannot deal with Genesis. That was an epic fucking meltdown.
Yeah. But with that, we do thank you guys for listening to our thoughts on the Terminator franchise. And for those of you who have seen all of the Terminator films, what did you guys think of it? Comment below, and if you like what you see here, you can check out more of our reviews, and we'll be seeing you in our next one. We'll see you later.
All right.